Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and this is our first video in our crochet book blanket series. What we're going to do for this is I'm going to go ahead and crochet a granny square for every single book that I read this year in 2026. Maybe it won't be a blanket, maybe it'll be like a pillow, or maybe we'll carry this on for a couple of years. I'm not entirely sure, but I am looking forward to getting started, and we are going to start off with our first book today. We finished our first book of the year. We'll talk more about what that book is in a minute, but I just kind of want to talk about this process first. So if you didn't know, I'm a former teacher. I was an English teacher, so reading is another one of my big passions. And for 2025, I was in a huge reading slump compared to 2024. I just think, I really focused on crochet, and then also I wasn't finding books that I was really interested in, and also it wasn't the easiest year, so I was just in a huge slump. So I'm hoping that I can just rediscover my love for books this year. So I'm really excited to kind of create this series with you all, and I'm thinking for each video I will just do a couple books at a time. So the plan is that while I am crocheting up the granny square, I'm going to talk about what the book is about a little bit, and then I want to give my review, and then by the end we'll have our granny square. The first book we're going to be talking about is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. As a former secondary English teacher, I read a lot of young adult fiction. I thought something like this that is kind of like an easier read would just be something great to get me started and hopefully pull me out of my reading slump. So that is the book that I just finished and the square we are going to make next. A lot of what I read is audiobooks now because it gives me more time to crochet, and it's really what works best for me right now, and audiobooks totally are books. I have switched to getting audiobooks mostly from the Libby app because one, it doesn't cost any money because I'm getting them from my library, so highly recommend, and it also reduces clutter in my home, so I think that's really nice. And audiobooks just help me to still be able to crochet, and then I don't have a ton of time to just sit and read, and also sometimes I have a hard time just sitting still, so audiobooks are what's working best for me. So I will go ahead and insert the picture of the actual cover of the book. I won't actually have a lot of the physical copies of the book. This is the cover, and these are the colors that I picked to go along with it. So I went ahead and grabbed 4 because I'm thinking my granny squares are going to have 4 rounds. So I grabbed purple for the flowers, I grabbed this green for the ivy, this gray for the sword, and then black for the back cover of the book. So I'm going to use these 4 colors, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I have to be completely honest. I do have to refresh my memory. I don't have a ton of experience with granny squares, but I feel like I can do this. And a lot of the ones I'm seeing are not actually even using magic rings, but I don't mind a magic ring, to be honest. So that's what we're going to do. We are talking about the book Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and it is a series. I am specifically just talking about the first book. So I want to just start by kind of just giving a quick little what the book is about, right? Let me just start by saying this book gives very much like Hunger Games for sure, with a fantasy element. There's definitely that whole separation of the powerful, the royals, and then the people who are poor. Basically, our main character's name is Peyton Gray, and she does not have any power. She is considered an ordinary. In this kingdom, it's actually illegal to live if you're an ordinary. Through a wild series of events, she gets wrapped up with the prince, who is an elite, right? And he has powers, and his ability, he is able to borrow the ability of others. And part of his job is basically eradicating ordinaries, and he's going to be the future enforcer of the kingdom, and his brother is going to be the king. So mostly this book is about these trials, right? And these trials are basically for entertainment, which is where kind of it reminds me a lot of the Hunger Games. So Peyton ends up getting wrapped up in this whole trial. She gets picked to compete in this trial. For most people that would mean death, but her dad, who is dead, actually trained her a lot because she is an ordinary, and he was trying to conceal her so that she wasn't put to death for not having powers. Okay, so she gets picked to do these trials, and she has to go to, okay, what are we doing next? What color are we doing next? Now we're doing green. She has to go to the kingdom to fight in these trials. And one of the king's son is also fighting in the trials, the enforcer, because of the fact that he has to prove himself, right? So they're doing all this training and doing these trials. The goal for her is to survive these trials, and then for him, it's basically to prove himself. So if you are someone who really likes, you know, fantasy, because that fantasy element is there for sure. She's just trying to survive these trials, but she keeps kind of getting herself wrapped up into other things, and it's kind of making her want to discover more while also trying to like conceal the fact that she's ordinary and she doesn't have powers like everyone else. So I hope that explanation kind of gives you an idea of the vibes of the book, because I really don't want to give too much away. Now I want to kind of give you my thoughts on the book. So I thought it was just okay. Like, I kind of at times had to push myself to keep listening to it, and then also like I don't think I'm going to continue with the series. Maybe I will at some point, but like right now I'm just not entirely that interested. I will say, like, I did kind of like the idea of the Hunger Games aspect of it. Like I went through that dystopian book reading era where like that's all I wanted to read. So this kind of feels like a throwback to that a little bit. My issues with the book though is that, so you have these characters, right? This kind of whole forbidden thing. Like, he's hunting ordinary, she's an ordinary. She gets picked to compete in these trials for the kingdom, which are like entertainment for the people. But like when you're reading the book, the whole entire time, which is like, it feels like what the book's about, right? These trials, but the trials feel like an afterthought, like the whole entire time to me. Like sometimes there's all of these other things going on, and then it'll be like, boom, trials, like starting tomorrow, because it's like multiple things. And so sometimes I feel like the trial part is just kind of not very like explained. It feels like an afterthought. Okay, next up is Gray. So yeah, I just really feel like the whole trials thing was an afterthought, even though it's like this whole huge part of the book. But there are definitely things that are interesting. I think the whole like Hunger Games aspect with powers is really interesting. I think that's cool. I'm also confused, to be honest, a little bit about how he can't realize that she is an ordinary. It just seems like so obvious. So that just almost seems like a plot hole to me. The situation with the brothers, because the other brother who is going to actually be the king eventually, it has a big role too, and the relationship there is also weird. I will say though, the ending part was like the most interesting to me, and was like the thing that I was like, oh, maybe I will read the second book, because it was kind of the part where I was like, I am interested in what happens next, but I didn't have that feeling through the whole entire thing. So honestly, maybe the second book would be better, because we've moved on from this whole trial thing. Storyline actually feels a little bit stronger now, if that makes sense. Okay, and our last row is Black, and I just thought we could finish with my final thoughts. I'm gonna go ahead and give it 3 stars, and I'm having a hard time giving it 3 stars because I almost want to give it halves, but I don't want to do that. So we're gonna give it 3 stars, and I don't think I'm going to continue along with the series right now because I wasn't interested enough to do it. But if you've read this series and you're like, oh, she has to keep going, it gets better, it gets better, please give me some reasons down below. But yeah, right now I'm like moving on, and I'm actually reading the second book that I'm working on for this year, and it is good. So stay tuned for that one. I'm thinking 3 stars because of the fact that like some things just didn't make sense to me, and you know, obviously it's fiction anyway, but for the storyline there were some things that just felt like an afterthought for me, and I was confused by that, and that just made me honestly lose interest sometimes. Yeah, I would just say it took me out of it a little bit. And I know it is a really popular series, but I can't get over the fact that it just feels very Hunger Games, but like not as good, even though I think adding the whole like power element makes it more interesting. Yeah, so I'm gonna just go ahead and say that this is overhyped, and I was expecting so much more. I will say that I am looking for book recommendations. If you have them, I will read a lot of different things. I'm not real big on nonfiction, to be honest. I'll read the occasional memoir, but I probably won't read many of that kind. The next book I'm reading is definitely a romance, so stay tuned for that. hopefully I'll be able to record that one soon and finish it. If you read Powerless, you have some thoughts on it, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. This is just one where I'm just like, am I missing something? Because I know how hyped this was, but I just expected so much more. All right, so that is our first book square of 2026. Let's go ahead and compare the book cover to the granny square. I think this turned out really cute. This was my first time doing this, and I do feel like it was a little rough, so hopefully we will get better. It'll kind of follow this format. They'll have a quick explanation and then my review while we do this square. So next time you see me, I will have finished my second book, and I'm thinking for each video, maybe we'll do 2 or 3 books at a time. I haven't decided on that yet, but editing me will know. But I thought I would just finish with this, and I'll see you for the next one. We are back. We finished our second book this year, so we need to make another granny square, and today we're going to be talking about The Heated Rivalry book by Rachel Reed. I'm really excited because, to be honest, I love this one. So I'm going to give you a synopsis and then just kind of go over my thoughts. And we're going to do that while we make a granny square together. So this is my second one this year, and these are the colors we're going to use. So I just kind of base these colors on the uniforms of the 2 players in the book. So we have black, yellow, and they're not the perfect color representations, but I'm just using what I have. So we have the black and yellow for the one team, and then the blue and red for the other team. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and start with the black here. So I have heard, and I'm sure a lot of you have probably also heard about the TV show Heated Rivalry. And I was like, what is this about? I had some friends talking about it, and I just didn't really know what it was, to be honest. And then I found out it was a book, and I decided that, let's see if I can find it somewhere to read before I watch this show. And I found it on Spotify, so I started listening to it. Okay, so one of the players is from Canada and the other is from Russia. So the book is about these 2 young players and their start in the NHL. And because they're 2 really amazing athletes and they're playing on different teams, but like kind of the same goal, the media and things, they just kind of start pitting them against each other and branding them as rivals. So we have these 2 athletes that are completely different people too. Like one is really arrogant and cocky, and the other one is kind and supportive. Also come from really different family dynamics too. So they couldn't be like more different, but something brings them together, and it's more than just hockey. Next color is yellow. So the thing that they also have is chemistry, and they're both drawn to each other and attracted to each other. So this whole secret romance forms, and it's something that they have to be really careful about because, they are the star players for their teams. Everyone views them as these rivals, not to mention that there's not any openly gay players in the NHL, so it's just not something they want to deal with, but they also still want to keep meeting up. I did not even say their names. So we have Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov are the 2 hockey players' names. And yeah, it's basically just about them and their relationship and what they're doing and what they're going to do about it. They have to obviously make some decisions, because they're going through some feelings. They need to figure those out and decide, what they want. But that's basically the gist of it. Next, I'm going to do red. Okay, let's go ahead and start with what I thought about this book. I absolutely loved this book. I thought it was amazing, and I can't wait to talk about why. I'm going to go ahead and just give you the rating right away and tell you that I'm going to go ahead and give Heated Rivalry a 5-star. And I cannot even remember the last time I gave a book 5 stars, but I absolutely love this one. And I don't know if it's a series. I don't know. Apparently, there might be other ones that are maybe unrelated. I'm not entirely sure because it says number 2, but maybe the first book, it's like in the same world. I'm not entirely sure, but I read this one separately, so I'm going to have to do some research on that. But I loved this as a standalone. I didn't feel like confused or anything like that. Let me just start off by saying that this book has the spice. If that's not something that you read or are interested in, pass on this one. I'm a reader of all kinds of books, so I don't mind. Even though it's got the spice, like it still tells such a good story about these characters, Shane and Ilya, and their relationship and how it started and how it changed, because this book goes over quite a few number of years. And I think that's important because you can see the change throughout their story. So you have, a character that is, figuring out they're gay, and then a character that is bisexual and has more experience. And what I love about this book that I don't feel like we see in a lot of LGBTQ plus books is the response to gay characters. And what I mean when I say that is like, it's just like when you read characters or read stories with Black characters, as a teacher who read a lot of YA, and you also like have to consider like books in your classroom library that also feature Black joy instead of just like stories that just have, Black characters going through hardships all the time too. And that's kind of how I feel about this book too, and like the gay characters, because the whole entire time I just kept waiting for, a different experience, because it's what's represented in a lot of books with gay characters. Like, for example, like blackmailing, characters that are gay into coming out or exposing them instead of letting them do that on their own. We see that so much, and it's just kind of expected. And as I was waiting for that, I just kept thinking like, this is going to ruin the book for me. And obviously that did not happen, thank goodness. Another thing that I loved is how other characters in the book responded to, finding out about this relationship or finding out about, one of the characters being gay. So for example, one of them found out about the character being gay, and I loved how it wasn't something that was met with, disgust or like shame. The way that she was just so gentle and kind, it's just one of those situations where I hope someone who's going through this and experience it has someone in their corner like that, because it was so incredibly heartwarming. All right, next color is going to be blue. Just trying to find the end here. Oh, okay. So yeah, I just love this book. I love the characters. I love how different they are. I love their development throughout the book. I love how their relationship changes. I enjoyed how they decide to like figure things out and how the book is resolved, because it's all about, what they want to do, and it's on their terms. And it was just so sweet and heartwarming. I obviously love the representation in this book. I think that is great and so important. Definitely going to be watching the show next, so that's exciting. It's just such an entertaining book. I feel like I have not gotten through a book so quick in a while, so guys, maybe this is a good sign. Maybe I'm coming out of my reading slump. The problem is I don't know what I'm going to read next, so I need to go on the Libby app and see what holds I have on there to figure out what we're going to listen to next. This one was an easy one for me to recommend. I definitely loved it. Let me know if you've read it or watched the show. I'm thinking in this series now that I've seen how long I talked the first book, I'm going to probably go ahead and do 2 books for each video. It's mid-February, so I'm pretty proud of how many books I've read so far this year. Like I said, this is all to pull me out of my slump and get me out of reading books again. I don't know if we'll have a book blanket by the end of this, but we will definitely have some granny squares to make something, or just keep continuing to make granny squares until we have enough to make a blanket. I'm fine with that too. I just finished up the square. Let's go ahead and hide these ends for the reveal here. Here is our square, and here is the cover. What do we think? I think it looks really cute, and I'm excited. So we now have 2 of our book granny squares. We are 2 granny squares into our 2026 book blanket. This has been so fun, and I'm so excited I am doing this with you all. I hope you're enjoying it. Let me know what you're reading in the comments below. Let me know if you have any book recommendations. I would love to have those too. If you've read either of these, let me know if we thought the same thing, or if you have a different kind of review. I'd love to hear that too. If you want to see more of me, you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram, where I share more mom and lifestyle content. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next crochet video.